Hey, what's going on, guys? Kalamazi here. In today's video is going to be looking at Warlock 10.2 PTR. I guess looking at the changes, but really giving feedback on the changes from the first build that we got of 10.2 on all the Warlock stuff, dash for demo AF changes and all of that. Now, I want to clarify off the bat, this is indeed still week 1 of PTR. I guess week 2 technically. It's Sunday night, Monday morning, but I gave it a lot of thought, wanted to sleep on it a little bit. I think these changes, most of this feedback is just based on the changes that we got. Sort of putting aside a lot of the things we talked about in 10.2 feedback because those weren't really looked at or addressed. And we'll hit on a few things along the way. Some things like some capstone talents a little bit here and there, looking at AF a tiny bit. But a lot of it's focused on Demonology because Demonology got the most changes. I think it probably needs a decent bit more to help it get to where I guess it probably should be. So there'll be a link to the feedback document that I'm going to show here down below in the video description. At the same time, if you want any week or add-ons to see in the video, links to Twitch and Discord down below, they're all for free. At the same time, like always, I want to give a shout out to my patrons, so we're getting to the video as well. For all support on Patreon, guys, thank you a million times. Like always, I really appreciate it. If you're looking at supporting on Patreon or following me on TikTok or anything up here, there's links all up here. The 10.2 Warlock PTR spreadsheet will indeed be going live on Patreon within like a week and a half, 2 weeks-ish, whenever testing begins and all that. But PTR is indeed pretty far along already, so I'm already starting to work on the outline of it. And if you're interested in early access to that, a tier 3 Felgar rank of Patreon or higher gets early access to it. So with that being said, let's get into some AF stuff off the bat, which isn't like that complicated, and then we'll get into the good stuff for Demo and Destro. Okay, I know I said AF first, but I realized we have 2 points to hit on in the class tree here. The class tree actually received no changes at all heading into 10.2 PTR, which I was hoping there'd be a good bit of, actually. Number one, the first point I would hit on here really fast. It's Soulburn, Soulstone, been asking for it for a little while. Once again, I mean, everything here is just feedback. Obviously, asking it doesn't always happen, but I think it'd be a pretty good point to have, I guess, added to Soulburn. Making your Soulstone instant cast would be a huge quality of life increase for Warlocks in raiding with a plus, literally everywhere. And committing a Soul Shard to do that seems like more than a fine cost to do so. So if it's possible to add Soulburn, I guess Soulstone to Soulburn, that would be awesome. Huge quality of life increase, all that. Every Warlock knows how many times they can recall when they got yelled at for trying to res somebody in Raid or in Plus, and they're getting yelled at to res somebody, and you're just casting your Soulstone because it has a glacially slow cast time. So Soulburn, Soulstone would be sick if possible, and that's that. Now, the only other part here in the class tree, I summarized sort of the capstone talents in just like a few paragraphs here. I'll try and read through it and summarize it a little bit, but I feel like Warlock Class 3 capstones could use a bit of help heading into patch 10.2. Mainly looking at Grim Feast, but also a little bit when it comes to Inquisitor's Gaze, Soulkeeper, and Soulburn, right? Now, Grim Feast was initially added in a higher part of the tree during Alpha. I think it sat here, actually. I'm pretty sure it went Decimating Bolt, this thing, and then Dimensional Rift, I'm pretty sure, for Class Tree in early Alpha and things. But it was removed from the Warlock Class Tree. While the ability does feel like it has a place in the Class Tree somewhere, which I think it does, it's not strong enough to justify a capstone position. It's not played anywhere in PvE, really anywhere at all, because you don't play ID as Affliction. It's not played anywhere in PvE. I don't know if it's played in PvP or not, but it sees very, very little play. And even if it did, it's nowhere near worth capstone level. If you look at a hunter tree or a mage tree or a rogue tree, they're full of like cool, awesome DPS capstones, and then we have Grim Feast. Grim Feast could slot somewhere up here, probably even up here, and be more than fine. And where it's relevant, it's good. You still want access to this if you play ID anywhere, and I'm sure you want it in arenas and things, right? So I don't think getting rid of it is like a great idea, but moving it somewhere in the tree where, you know, it's of lesser importance, but still an option, I think is a very, very good idea, which frees up a handful of capstone talents, right? So getting back to it, it's not played anywhere really. A unique and exciting capstone replacement is for Grim Feast to bring back a permanent Doomguard pet, similar to what we had in Legion with Grimoire Supremacy. I've hit on this for a few patches now, but I think it's still a great idea. Having like the option to keep a permanent Doomguard around. I will say Doomguard is part of our tier set for Demonology, this tier and all that. So maybe a bit less likely comparatively to, you know, before we got this tier set unveiled for Demo. But either way, I think it's a potential option. It would be really cool to have around. It'd be fun, thematic. It makes a lot of sense. Warlock, Doomguard. It was great in Legion. It was fun to play with, all the above. It'd be nice to have. And I also have Grand Warlock's design mixed in here. Now, this is sort of a copy pasta from the 10.2 feedback document that came out before PTR. I'm leaving this here because I think just in general our capstones need to be looked at. At the same time, Inquisitor's Gaze needs to have some kind of like It needs to have some kind of probably ICD added to it. At times it just procs back to back to back for 2 minutes straight. At times you don't get a proc for 2 minutes at all. It needs to have an ICD and probably also bad luck protection added to it, so it's more consistent and, you know, not where one pull you have, you know, 8 million damage from it, and the next pull you have none at all. So I've had it happen literally back to back. At the same time, I think making Summon Soulkeeper instant cast would be really strong. It'd be really helpful. And like sort of putting it off the GCD, because I think one of the bigger issues with it is that it's actually okay-ish damage-wise in AoE. It's better than Inquisitor's Gaze, but the problem is, like, when you're playing Destro and spamming million rate of fires for Inferno value and Shard Gen and all that, you don't really want to stop and go, okay, 1 second cast time, Summon Soulkeeper, and then get back to flowing again. It just feels awkward. The same case for Aff, spamming Seed of Corruption. It's also the same for Demonology, building imps with, you know, via hand Guldans and imploding, casting dogs, pressing guillotine, hitting demonic strength, setting up tyrants, and all that. If this was like an instant cast spell and or off the GCD, I mean, likely both would be great. It would actually be played in AoE. It'd be good. I think the damage is like okay-ish, but just with it being a cast time still, just it feels too awkward. Likely these could both just be redesigned to something else, but I don't know. Soulburn feels okay too. It's probably our best capstone overall, honestly. It feels like it could be like a row up here as well, like around where teaching is or something like that, right? Either way, like, I mean, once again, Grand Warlock's design swap, probably not happening if it didn't happen in this patch. They even reduced the cooldown every ability to make it a baseline cooldown, like Dark Lair, Tyrant, Infernal. And like permanent Doomguard, probably not happening either. I might not even include this in the forum post, but I'll hit on like capstones and the fact that they probably need to be changed. I mean, people have mentioned Dark Soul, they've mentioned Soul Harvest and other abilities. It's probably pretty obvious Dark Soul ain't happening. I'd love it, but it's been out there for a while and it hasn't happened. But either way, drawing attention to our capstones I think is very important, and hopefully that gets addressed at some point. But we will see where it goes. So moving on here to Affliction. So Affliction and Destro don't have as many like things to hit on as, well, Demo does, right? It's mostly, you know, a Demo right up here. But I will say a couple things here for Aff. So number one, there's feedback for each tier set, right? So the tier set, Affliction's tier set in patch 10.2 feels like a solid fit when it comes to rating, but lacks value in AoE and M+. Having the ability to extend your dots by 6 seconds when you Rapture feels great, and it also does more damage, right? But I think one of the big things, we hit on a little bit already, is adding Seed of Corruption to the 4-set bonus, right? So you get the 3 seeds that are buff damage wise, and also 3 seeds extend your dots, all your dots that are up. This would not make it, if it's 2 seconds, it would not make your dots last long enough to reach the next Vile Taint. Keep in mind, Vile Taint is going to be half a minute again come next patch, and plus, but it would still be quality of life. It still wouldn't be as good as Shadow Crash and Shadow Priest stuff, but hey, it's something. Without it, Aff's bonus feels good in rating. It's probably like a B+, but in Mythic Plus, it's pretty much irrelevant, unless you're like pulling a boss or killing a couple mobs. So if they add a Seed of Corruption clause to that, it becomes much better. Number two, there is a tier set bug. If you have Absolute Corruption talented and you Rapture with this bonus, it overrides the AC and applies like a 2-second corruption. I believe we had the same bug in Sepulchre with our tier set, which also increased dot duration. It's probably a quick fix, probably the same fix, honestly, but worth pointing out that should be fixed, because you might play AC in a fight next tier, we'll see. And we have Siphon Life, right? So this is from 10.2 feedback. I think it's still relevant and probably worth hitting on. So I will say that I am not as big of a hater on Siphon Life as much as other people are, but I don't think it's like great either way. I think the way that Rapture is designed to do more damage based on the more dots you have on targets also favors Siphon Life a lot more than, you know, it used to in other various situations and all that kind of stuff, right? But a big thing, Affliction's got a lot of button bloat, right? I mean, your opener, Precast Haunt, Precast UA, Agony, Corruption, Siphon Life, Drain Soul, 3 Section Shadows Embrace, Vile Taint or Singularity, Soul Rot, Dark Glare, Berserking, whatever actually have, Trinkets, that you Rapture a few times, that's 13, 14 buttons. And you got to maintain Shadows Embrace, maintain dots, juggle Dread Touch, right? Now, they've made good quality life changes with the duration increase, the Dread Touch, everything to make things a bit simpler, which is good. Malefic Affliction's gone too, which is even better. But I feel like Siphon Life could easily be changed to a spell like this, which is from Wrath, I believe, where when you deal damage with Corruption, you can make it Corruption UA or whatever you want. You are instantly healed for a certain amount done by the Corruption, and it also, in addition, your damage done by your Corruption, Seed of Corruption, and Unstable Affliction is increased by 5%. Could be higher than that. I mean, needs to be higher than 5% to be relevant, but there needs to be a way to separate differentiate between Siphon Life and Absolute Corruption, because in most settings you're just playing Siphon Life. Now there might be some niche ones where maybe you want AC, or if you don't like Siphon Life, you play AC anyways. Siphon Life is typically just the better option in basically every scenario. Partially due to Rapture damage, you know, feeding into it. Also partially due to how like Grim Reach works in Plus, with your main target having more dots on it. It just feels like in the spots where you think you want AC, maybe like council fights, like 3-target fights, you're still playing Siphon Life and juggling a million dots. You're juggling 14 dots with 2 debuffs at that point as well, because of the interaction with Rapture and things. So if there's a way to make that a bit easier, maybe favor like increasing agony and corruption damage and UA damage with, you know, with Siphon Life just being overhauled and have it heal you versus AC being permanent, you know, easier, whatever, it probably be worth looking at, right? But want to draw attention to that and go from there. The last thing for AF, Inevitable Demise. This is very undertuned. There is a council fight heading into patch 10.2 in the raid. It is 3 targets, I'm pretty sure, permanently. It's sort of how the council fight was in Sepulchre, where they have to die at the same time, from what I've seen. This talent is very undertuned. It was played in Vault for a little bit. I think it was nerfed, not even sure. I know they buffed Pandemic Invocation a good bit, and at this point you're playing Soul Swap just to bridge the gap to Withering Bolt. There are fights where this is good, actually, but having that less, having one less talent point, you know, being 2 required here versus 1, gets you an extra point for PI over here, which is also, you know, fine in single target, even in council-based fights, right? And you get access to Withering Bolt. So likely I need some buffs. At the same time, this tier, we have Soul Rot, part of our bonus, which is likely going to mean we're probably playing some points in Gluttony and a good bit of settings for a reduced cooldown on it. So ID becomes more relevant, which is very cool. But when it's not doing any damage in the first place, you know, it sort of removes that, you know, coolness factor in a sense. But you have Siphon, or you have Soul Rot more often, and it also lasts longer. So in those 3 target settings, those 4 target settings, if you think back to Pantheon and Sepulchre, you could stack max stack IDs 2 or 3 times in a Soul Rot window. Now it's longer. But the problem, ID has to do damage. So hopefully that gets tuned a little bit, and we will see, and yeah, go from there. All right, moving on to Destruction. So the first note here being the tier set. Same thing for every section here. It's a tier set off the bat, then we'll get into class changes. So after testing Destruction's tier set in 10.2, the proc chance on the 2-piece feels very powerful. It does. It feels good. Like, there's been times testing an hour ago with Splat on dummies where we get like 3 to 4 procs nearly back to back from Immolate ticks. And there's times you have no procs for a minute. Honestly, I don't even hate that. It feels sort of chaotic, but rewarding, and it sort of embraces what Destro was, or is. I mean, it was back in Legion, but sort of, you know, it feels good to hit Dimensional Rift. One of the issues, though, I could show a meter from earlier here. I don't have it, but I mean, Shadowy Tear and the Chaos Barrage one, the Shadow Portal and like the purple one, and the one that spews a bunch of little like embers out of it, the green one, not the red one, do a good bit more damage from what I've seen than the Chaos Bolt one and the Fire one, which is from the 4-piece, right? So, number one, well, I think we need to buff the damage of Dimensional Rift in general, like the baseline talent that shares a node with Chaos Incarnate, and then at the same time, likely buff the 4-piece damage, because it seems to be pretty far behind for being your 4-piece, right? Now, the tier bonus also requires us to select Dimensional Rift to function, which is a capstone talent and a choice node. Now, Zyro brought up a great point earlier, where it's like, why doesn't the tier bonus just reward you with that talent passively, like the old rings, the soul rings from Legion used to do, where they just give you a talent, you had the ability, which is very, very cool. I'm down for that. It's a good suggestion. The problem is that has to happen for every class that has talents in their tier bonus, which is a lot of them. I'd be down for it again. It would solve a lot of problems, but I feel like them making it talent based is sort of because of the fact that like they want you to play talents you're not really playing. They want to change up your profile, change how you play, and whether you like that or not, probably just were the case. But, you know, we will see where that goes. Now, getting back to the tier bonus here, the other thing is that it's not really relevant in M+. Dimensional Rift is basically just straight up a single target ability. The Flame Rift might cleave a tiny amount. And Rifts do give 0.3 shards whenever you cast one, but they're all single target based. They really don't cleave. Even when the fire one does, the damage is really, really, really low. So that's an issue. You'd like to just play the 2-piece. Well, maybe just play the 2-piece in Mythic Plus for the Immolate damage increase and just say, whatever, give me some higher eye level stuff. And I'll play just no 4-piece and half my 2-piece in Mythic Plus just because of how awkward it is, right? That might change. I don't know. But that's important to point out. And when it comes to even M+ in general, like, so let's say let's say we swap builds here, right? Let's go to AoE Grand Warlock Design. This is more like the general template for what you're playing in Plus now. You're not going to play this next patch. It'll go away. It's fine. But this is the general template down here. The problem is that to access Dimensional Rift, or this node in general, you have to pull a point from either Grand Warlock's Design or pull a point from Avatar Destruction, which is Purple Infernal, Infernal Stuns, Shard Gen Damage, all that, or pull your 2-minute Infernal, which is also a nerf version of old Grand Warlocks, to get access to this. Even if you did this, you'd want Chaos Incarnate over Rift by a long shot, because Chaos Incarnate is max mastery for your Chaos Bolts, Rain of Fires, all that stuff, which you're casting a bunch of Mythic Plus, right? So it's not just the fact that you're losing one of your big talents, it's also that you want the other choice node in this talent row, right? So you've got, you know, tuning obviously needs to be, like, you need to buff his ability baseline, buff the Fire Rift likely, but you still have problems of where it's like only really useful in single target, and even if you wanted it in Plus or wanted like one of these two options, you play Chaos Incarnate instead. If you really want to go that far, you got to pull one of your other good options. So it just, there's a lot of issues with this ability. I don't mind it. I think it's cool. It's very fun to hit the button, but I feel like it sort of is a lot of work to get the ability. Mythic Plus, and rating isn't too bad. It's like 2.5k behind Chaos Incarnate and single target for me, which I can lessen that gap playing some crit haste gear. But I feel like there's a lot of issues trying to get the ability while making it relevant in content, and it needs some buffs. But the cool thing is that it does feel good to hit when you're hitting a target dummy. It procced. We got 2 procs in a row. Awesome. Open the portals and do damage, right? I've seen rifts in my total breakdown doing like, I might even have it here actually, let me see. I've seen rifts doing anywhere from, I have multiple windows here, I guess. I don't know why, but that's okay. Well, I cleared it out. Great. I don't know what this is. Either way, I've seen it doing anywhere from like 8% of my damage to 12%. But that's not, and when you hear 12%, you think, oh, that's not a bad, you know, amount for a tier bonus, but that's not the tier bonus. Like, you're probably doing a very large portion of that, probably at least like 6%, 7%, just baseline from Dimensional Rift, the talent itself. So you have to think, the tier bonus is giving me some resets and spawning me a fire portal, but the fire portal needs to get buffed significantly. These 3 portals need buffs as well. So your 2-piece, 4-piece is likely attributing to like 3 to 4% of that damage, maybe. There is also the Immolate buff, which is something, don't get me wrong. But besides that, it's a pretty weak bonus now. But it can be tweaked, it can be tuned. The question, though, is it worth putting all that work into tweaking and tuning it? I don't know. I don't Blizzard, or I'm not Blizzard, but the cool thing is it's fun to hit. So that's all summarized in here, if you want to read over it. But those are like the points I want to hit on, right, for that. Now, the Madness Chaosbringer changes. I'll summarize this as well. We can read through it if you want. But, so the change was made. Madness is gone. Chaosbringer is the new Madness. Now, they buffed Chaos Bolt by 15% baseline, like outside of this, like an aura buff, right? Now, on top of that, Chaosbringer is also 15%. So it's a total of 30, essentially, when old Madness was 25. So Chaos Bolt got buffed by 5%, technically overall raw damage-wise. However, you lost the cast time reduction clause on this because you don't have that, you know, chaining Chaos Bolts or weaving Chaos Bolts and have the cast time reduction, right? I think a great change, take off that 5% damage buff and add a 20% cast time reduction back to Chaos Bolt here. Basically, you can basically make this Madness, or something along those lines, while just not having a duration on it, right? I think in the end, Chaosbringer, if the two options were having Madness and it's staying a 5-second duration or having Chaosbringer, if it was not an option to make Madness 8 seconds long, Chaosbringer is better. Because in the end, like, yeah, it did significantly reduce like the skill ceiling and skill gap and all that stuff in the end. But like, let's be honest, man, Destro, like you press Chaos Bolts. I mean, there was some skill to it, yes, for sure. But in the end, it's been the same way for 20 years. Don't get me wrong, skill expression has gone a bit. It does feel like pretty bland. I've seen the video of the meme video. I get it. I mean, like, but you are still launching bolts. They do still hit hard. The one thing I want to hit on here as well, Rain of Fire and Shadow Burn were not given compensatory buffs. I think that's how you say it. They weren't given compensation buffs like Chaos Bolt was. So Chaos Bolt got that aura buff outside of this. Rain of Fire and Shadow Burn didn't. And they were also 25% with Madness. So hopefully we see buffs to Rain of Fire and Shadow Burn in next build. We'll see where that goes. Without that, I mean, the fact that you can't get sub 2-minute Infernals anymore, you can get 1 minute when it comes to like Bracken Heights and Freeholds and heavy AoE. That's gone now. This is a baseline 2-minute Infernal. And Rain of Fire took a hit. We're taking multiple hits here with Destro's AoE profile. So We'll see where this goes. Maybe add some kind of cast time reduction clause to Chaos Bolt, buff Rain of Fire and Shadowburn outside of it, hopefully, and I guess just see where it goes. Now, the last thing I want to hit on here for Destro is actually going to be baseline talent swap and Cataclysm. Now, this is not part of the changes that happened a few days ago. I think it's worth hitting on because having baseline Cataclysm or just like a talent swap of Cataclysm would be out of all the changes I want for Destro, I want baseline, I want Cataclysm and Inferno to be separated in a talent node, whether one of them's baseline or not, the most. It is like it's like having 3-minute Infernal and 2-minute Infernal. The spec feels so much different. It feels so much better heading into a trash pack and plus when you have the option to go Kata into Havoc into Rain of Fire spam instead of going Immolate, 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 Immolate. When warriors are spinning, Afflocks are throwing seeds, Demolocks are implode, and people are throwing wild abilities out. I'm casting 4 dots. It feels bad, man. Like you've got Shadow Priest that have Shadow Crash, whatever, for like, you know, both their dots. Aff has Vile Taint, right? But like having them manually cast multiple Immolates just feels sort of gross. It would give you like flashpoint stacks sort of fast. It's not a big deal. You stack it pretty quickly either way, right? But having the ability to go into a pack and just go Kata, it's cool thematically. It's an awesome ability. People love this ability. Apply multiple Immolates for shard gen and start cranking would feel really, really good. A great way to do that is just to get rid of Pyrogenics, I think. It's a cool legendary effect, but let's be honest, it's not really that impactful, right? I mean, yeah, it's 5% damage taken from fire spells when they're in Rain of Fire. And yeah, Rain was nerfed by this essentially, but like people will trade this for Kata or Inferno in this spot any day. So it goes, like a great example would be just going like Rain of Fire into Inferno, putting this here, and then into Kata. Which means if you want Kata, you still got to go through Rain of Fire and Inferno. You wouldn't go this far to get it in single target or a lot of raid encounters, but in plus or AoE where you want it, where you want that, you know, initial like impact damage, not incredibly strong. It's not like a huge burst of damage, but the ability to apply multiple Immolates, you could get it. So I would love to see it either as baseline or more likely just get rid of Pyrogenics, put this here, please, and put this here. Like it would be the biggest quality life increase for Destro we've seen in a very long time, barring getting Grand Warlocks and all that stuff too. It would be awesome. People would love it. It's brownie points in a sense as well, but like it would just feel great. I don't think it would make Destro too strong, right? You'll have extra shard gen, but like in mass AoE, you're at permanent 5 shards anyways, or 3+, right? Let's be honest, you know. So those are my 3 concerns with Destro. I guess concerns, I guess points to hit on. But honestly, for the most part, Destro doesn't feel that bad. Like yeah, it's a little slower with Chaosbringer. Yeah, Madness skill expression's gone, but besides that, you're not playing CDF next tier. You're either playing Conflagration, Chaos Row, or Soulfire again. And I guess the other cool thing is like Splat brought it up earlier with Chaos Bolts being, you know, unhasted again. It's easier to weave Soulfires between them, and like you're more used to the whole Spec playing slower, and Soulfire is pretty slow. All right, and finally we have Demonology. I'm gonna try and go fast here because this video is sort of long and I want to wrap it up, but there's a lot to cover here. So you can read the tier set if you want here. I'm gonna talk about the feedback. Demo's tier set in its current form is very undertuned. It is. The 2-piece, 4-piece are like 2% of your damage currently. They're very undertuned. But the good thing, they'll be buffed considerably probably regardless. Now, the Doom brand from your 2-piece likely needs some considerable damage buffs. But I like how it captures the essence of Doom and Hand of Doom from Legion and previous expansions. It actually does feel okay to play with. I don't mind it if it's tuned properly. Thematically, I think it's there. Like, it makes sense. Demonology summons Doom guards. They find a way to like capture the essence of Doom, Hand of Doom, without making you play Doom. Which honestly, like if you look at that glass half full, it's pretty cool, right? There should be a clause. It'd be a good idea to, how do I word this? It'd be cool if there was a clause added to the 2-piece to say, hey, if it hits one target, it does 400% more damage, 500% more damage, whatever. It does a lot more damage if one target is hit. Because I feel like it's going to be not very strong in single targets, even with tuning being increased based on how it scales in AoE. But we'll see where that goes. I think it's worth hitting on. The 4-piece is basically a Doom Guard. It spawns. The thing is, the 4-piece proc is incredibly low. I never see this thing. Once in every 20 Doom brand pops, right? It lasts 15 seconds, which is a long time. It's cool. It's out for a while. I think making it 10 seconds and making it cast every 2 seconds would be better for dumping damage faster and Mythic Plus and raiding and all that. But either way, it's cool. It needs considerable proc rate buffs, likely some damage buffs. But it's cool. I think this set captures what Demonology sort of is without having like synergy with Demonology in a sense and without forcing you to take Doom, right? And once again, glass half full. If you don't want to play Doom, there's that. Now, the thing with multiple Doom brands in AoE is So you can spread multiple Doom brands. Doom brand is applied by casting Demon Bolts. So you can cast 4 different Demon Bolts on 4 different targets, right? And they all have their own individual Doom brands. Now, the issue is that you're trying to tab target through multiple targets with Doom brand on them and cast Demon Bolts or cast Hand of Gul'dan to reduce duration. And I think the big issue is that Hand of Gul'dan, it only reduces the duration of the Doom brand on the targets you hit with Hand of Gul'dan. Like the target that you're targeting, the one mob. The splash damage from hand does not reduce the duration, which I think it really should. Because in the end, it's going to be so complicated juggling Demon Bolts and Hand of Gul'dan cast and tab targeting and kicking and stunning and CDing and casting dogs and imploding and casting hands. It's going to be a mess, right? I get what they're going for. I think it's definitely salvageable, but I think Hand of Gul'dan should reduce the duration of every mob that it hits that has Doom brand on it. And at the same time, I think it'd be cool to almost maybe just make Hand of Gul'dan apply the debuff instead of Demon Bolt, right? You really would have Hand of Doom from back in the day in a sense, which I don't think it'd be that strong with this effect, but it'd be cool, right? Because when the mobs die, the 2-piece is smart. It does, if there's a dot, like let's say there's 10 seconds left on the dot on Doom brand, but the mob dies, it will explode and do damage and maybe summon a Doom Guard. So it's very cool. It is smart in a sense, very awesome. But I think having Hand of Gul'dan maybe apply it instead of Demon Bolts or have Hand of Gul'dan splash damage also reduce the duration of all the mobs that have the buff on it would be pretty cool and go a long way in quality of life. Because this is much worse than juggling AF dots. This is like trying to keep up Siphon Life on 4 targets plus another dot. Like Siphon Life 2.0. It's wild. But I like it. It's cool thematically if they get it right, you know. So we'll see where that goes. But yeah, so it's on here. Hits on it here. Possibility of having Doom brand be applied by Hand of Gul'dan, all that, pretty cool. And there's that. Yeah, we'll remove the mental gymnastics, which is what I said. So the last thing here is demo tuning. Now, listen, there's not really like a whole lot of like points past this, but it's more of a summary of like a page of thoughts, right? So I'm going to read through it, and we'll sort of talk about it as we go. I do agree that Demo's peaks and valleys is an issue, but I don't feel that severely limiting Tyrant's power is the way to alleviate the issue. The massive damage spikes that Demonology has in 10.1 are mainly due to our Aberrus tier set, which is a ridiculous tier set, incredibly strong. You're going to play it over this tier set by a mile if they don't nerf it. Iridius Fragment, Clash Trinket, and Power Infusion. You could even say like Evokers and Pots, and that's whatever, right? You know, but the big things are those 4. Right? Once those effects are gone in 10.2, plus there's a huge eye level jump in 10.2, right? Demonology loses a tremendous amount of power. I made a video like a month ago talking about it. It loses like 25% of its damage compared to the Death losing like 10. Currently on PTR, Demo is very, very low. Well, those bonuses being around, right? Adding a 15 cap to Reign of Tyranny means that casting just Dread... So, say you're playing a full single target build. By casting just called Dreadstalkers, which is 6 power, like the 6 demonic servitude, so 6. Vile Fiend goes to 9, whatever. Here, 6. Florida man, 9, right? Grimoire, if you 3, so that's 10, 11, 12, and your baseline Felguard is 3. That's 15. That is the max stack of servitude you can get. You haven't summoned a single imp. The imps don't even count towards servitude if you're playing a single target build. That doesn't really feel right. It feels like we might have missed the mark a little bit there. It happens. I mean. It feels awkward. It feels like, okay, why don't these imps attribute to Reign of Tyranny when they always have in the past and all the other pets do, right? It feels a bit off. Even if you remove Vile Fiend and Grimoire from that, you only have 7 imps affecting it. But you can have a total of 10 imps affected by Tyrant's extension and damage amp, but at times, none of those imps, and at times a few of them, will work towards Reign of Tyranny. It's already very confusing to new players. Like, why does this number work and not this number? Why is this being buffed and why is this not being buffed? Why do not all my imps stay out? Why do only some stay out? And why does this not work for Reign of Tyranny? It's already causing a spaghetti bowl of like just twisted wires, and you know what I mean? It's just confusing. While the raw power per point was increased from 7 to 10, on Tyranny, it was indeed. There's a baseline clause above the passive white text here on retail that says demonic tyrant damage increased by 40%. That's just gone on PTR, just was removed. So it might have seemed like a buff, but it's a nerf. It's a bigger nerf on top of what it, the capping demonic servitude. So tyrant has been hit very, very hard. And then capping servitude also neuters a good portion of Demo's playstyle on M+, where you can carry a pack of imps, 1 pack, go to a new pack and cast dogs, and just go tyrant, rip, big implosion. That's what makes Demonology feel fun and plus. Building those imps and going to a new pack, hitting dogs, maybe Grimoire and just juicing and just blowing up a huge implosion. That's fun. That's the core of what Demonology is. But these changes are changing the core of Demonology and taking away a lot of that enjoyment, right? By capping Ray of Tyranny, by capping the number of imps you can have out, right? By capping pets that interact with Tyrant, which we'll get to in a minute here, right? So I think these need to be maybe possibly reconsidered, in my opinion, right? The recent changes to Tyrant extension and blacklisting, whitelisting pets for Tyrant interaction feels disappointing in gameplay. So what I'm referring to is like, it specifically says Vile Fiend, Felguard, Dreadstalkers, and up to 10 of your wild imps, which means that there's no extensions or damage amps to any pets from Nether Portal, or, you know, well, really anything else, right? Pitler wasn't affected by this stuff, but no Nether Portal pets are extended. So they broke the synergy between Nether Portal and Tyrant, which they wanted to do. They mentioned that, and I mean, I agree that peaks and valleys are an issue, but I don't think that going through and doing all this is like the right way to go about it necessarily. Let me see here. While the Reign of Tyranny, Nether Portal, Tyrant, Pitlord if are strong, if the best option is to start limiting what Tyrant does and does not interact with, Tyrant slash Nether Portal, so both here, it's likely best to address the root of the issue. And I feel that is the Nether Portal talent row. I mean, in the end, you can make cases for either, but like the fact of the matter is, like, I think when you have to go through and start limiting power, like, this works here, but only to this amount, and this affects this here, but not when this is happening. If it's Thursday night, Tyrant affects Portal. But if it's Saturday and you had 2 beers, it won't work anymore. If it's Monday afternoon, it'll work with 10 of your imps. But like, it's so confusing to newer players and players that have played it for a while. It's like, this is like not what Demonology has been, right? You know, but I get that it's hard to solve the problem. There's a lot of synergy between Portal and Tyrant, which is why I think that possibly just saying, you know what, we tried our best with Portal, it is what it is, might not have worked out. If Portal goes, like, if this row goes, this is my own thought process, I could be wrong, I don't work with Blizzard, they're smarter than I am, and you change it to a row that doesn't have interactions with Tyrant but is still strong on its own, you can remove the cap on Tyranny, remove the whitelist blacklisting on Tyrant, remove the imp cap, please remove that anyways, and just go back to having big strong Tyrants every minute and a half and go from there, right? Now, the idea that I have, talked about it with Max on stream yesterday and stuff, and THD, and once again, I don't work for Blizzard, I have no idea, I have no influence, this is just, I thought of this in 5 minutes, right? I think a good way to do it is, instead of Nether Portal, so this row's gone, right? But the same talents are required here, essentially. Nether Portal, Decimating Bolt. There's with Volition, you move Sack Souls either to that spot and replace something else. I'll put a different talent here, I don't know. Or you can even take Fatal Decimation, the conduit from Shadowlands. You can put it here, rank 1 and 2. Increase damage to Decimating Bolt, maybe make a cleave, right? Right here, Shard of Annihilation. Necrolord Legendary. Bolt always crits and does more damage. There's no interactions with Tyrant there, barring Sack Souls increase, which is like whatever. It even fits this row better. Like, there's no synergy between Stolen Power and Portal. It's just shoehorned in here, right? Like, it's Imp Cast and Demon Bolt. But if you put Decimating Bolt here, that's literally Demon Bolt into Demon Bolt talent, into like Shard of Annihilation, into like either Sack Souls or Fatal Decimation, right? Like, and the cool thing here, like, Portal thematically makes sense. I like having demons coming out of it, but in the end, the way it's designed currently, I don't think it works. I don't think personally, from my own experience, I don't think it works very well at this point. If you're having to address issues with like peaks and valleys, right? This Portal row and all that, there's no Tyrant synergy. Bolt was a 45-second cooldown, so you can go in between Tyrants, being a minute and a half with Tyranny. You can go Bolts for some damage, not insane peaks and valleys. You're not stacking cooldowns either, but you have some minor cooldowns that sustain between your Tyrants, right? And keep in mind, there's no Clash Trinket, no Iridius Fragment, no Power Infusion, likely because we're dead, and no tier bonus next year to add even more power to Tyrants, right? Those are all gone, you know? So, like, and listen, I am not like the biggest fan of Decimating Bolt. Like, this is just a suggestion. There can be plenty of other ones that are done, and in the end, I like pet solutions more, but I think this PTR seems like it's sort of far along. We have tier bonuses, not even like spoil, but testable day 1, right? The whole zone's already out, and some quest line things are going to come out at some point, I'm sure. But like, testing could be next week. PTR feels relatively far along. It's important to keep in mind, like, we're at BlizzCon in like 7 weeks, which is wild, but that's not a lot for raid testing and everything else. And PTR changes, like, feedback needs to be gathered, changes to be made, tested, implemented, tested again. I think this is a good, you know what, this could be the final patch of the expansion. Just put Bolt in there. It fixes the synergy problems. You can unnerf Tyrant and all that. Put Reign of Tyranny back to where it was. Make Tyrant, you know, a Tyrant again, right? And put Bolt in there. They've asked for it in PvP for a long time. In PvE, some liked it, some hated it. It does feed into the Shadow Bolt and Demon Bolt playstyle to keep buffing, right? Which, I mean, hey, that's got to be some brownie points in my book. I don't know, but I mean, is it like the best solution possible? In my opinion, no. But is it a good one and one that would work and help them just be like, yo, we don't got to nerf Tyrant a bunch and go back to like even just the baseline Tyrant is big playstyle again? Yeah, I think it would. So out of work for Blizz, chance are high it won't happen, but if it does, it'd be sick. But either way, I think having to whitelist, blacklist all these synergies and just like some things work, some don't. A Tuesday night it works, Wednesday doesn't, Thursday morning maybe it'll work, Friday who knows, figure it out, Saturday it's a weekend, hell yeah, let's do it. It just feels bad. It's hard to remember all the weird interactions that have come in, right? So I hope that if Portal has to go, no, it goes. It is what it is. It's a cool ability, but in the end, like, I don't want to play with a neutered Pit Lord. This doesn't matter when you don't extend the demons from Tyrant. Portal just feels weak in general. Tyranny is awkward, like with a 15 stack. Imps don't even count. You can only get 10 imps out here and plus, so like half the pack just dies for no reason, which is confusing to new players. You know, it just doesn't feel like Demonology anymore. And I'm going to wrap it up here. I don't want this taken in a way where it's like, oh, you know, I'm being toxic. Not in the slightest. Nope. It's important to be positive and like not be toxic when giving feedback. There can be plenty of great feedback somebody gives, but if it's toxic from the start, whatever, it gets ignored. Just does, being honest, right? There's a difference between toxicity and being passionate. I'm passionate, right? I want it to be good. I enjoy the spec. I want it to be good. And that's where I'm at. So I'm not frustrated or anything. I'm not like mad at anybody. I'm just saddened. But hopefully the good thing is it's week 1 of PTR. Changes can come. And, you know, we'll go from there. So we'll see what happens. Oh, yeah, they nerfed Demonic Knowledge and they removed Bloodbound Imps. Sucks, is what it is. It's going to happen. I don't know. This is a cool ability for what it's worth. Very, very cool. This is an awesome talent. So we'll see where it goes. And yeah, that's that. So thanks for watching, guys. Wraps it up. I hope it maybe hit on the points you guys were wanting to hit on for feedback going into 10.2. Hey, there's a post in the forums, Warlock feedback. If you have feedback or questions, or I guess questions, feedback or points, go dump them on there, right? It's week 1. If you want to get feedback in, now's the time to do it. I'm putting this in there probably in a few hours when this video goes up and all that. And yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited to see where it goes. I don't think Demon's going to stay this way. I really don't. But we'll see what happens, see where it goes. I guess that's all we can do. Give feedback and hope, you know? So all that being said, if you guys have any questions or comments, or just want to have a discussion about Demo in the comment section below, or any spec, put it down below. I'm curious what y'all's takes on stuff. I'm down to have that discussion. Let me know what y'all think of the current state of Demonology, and let me know what you think of the Portal, or the Decimating Bolt idea over Portal as well. And it's not the best idea, but I think it solves a lot of problems for the time we have, possibly, likely, going into the final patch and raid the expansion. We'll see where it goes, but yeah, that's that. So like always, Wiki Wars and add-ons down below. Twitch, Discord links if you want them. They're all for free in there. At the same time, like always, a shout out to my patrons who are in the video for all supporting on Patreon, guys. Thank you a million times. Like always, I really appreciate it. If you're looking at supporting on Patreon, there should be a link up here, as well as TikTok and Instagram and stuff. And once again, the 10.2 PTR Warlock spreadsheet will indeed be going live in probably a couple weeks, week or two, week and a half, 2 weeks. PTR is pretty far along, so it's going to be coming out soon. If you're interested in that, the Tier 3 Felguard rank or Patreon or higher, I'm dying here, sorry, does get early access to that. And yeah, that's that. So just keep in mind, it is still week 1. It is almost week 2, but it's still week 1. And it's Sunday morning. It's basically Monday morning at 3 a.m. right now. So, I mean, Blizzard's not in the office, but depending what happens, I mean, there's been a lot of vocal response to demo changes and stuff. We will see what happens. Maybe a blue post comes today. Maybe it doesn't at all. Maybe it's 2 weeks away. Maybe this goes live, I guess. In the end, listen, man, if they buff Demonology a crazy amount, which they're going to do, if they buff Demonology in this current form that you saw a minute ago right here, and it's good damage-wise, still going to be played. But the problem is, like, it's still confusing the newer players, I think. All the weird limitations and stuff. And if you've been playing it for a while or whatever, there's this looming feeling of like, man, this is a lot more fun to play in the past. It's still good, but it's a shell of what it used to be. So we'll see where it goes. All that being said, thanks for watching, guys, and I'll catch you all again soon on stream. Peace.